I need to apologize for having a more monotonous voice than usual, but I've been severely under the weather today. Been very sick. And no, I didn't get COVID. I just got gastritis, a poor man's disease. Apparently, there's also other things going on in the world right now besides COVID. There's other illnesses that you can get. But because of that, my voice isn't going to be as hyped up as usual. And since I get to talk about the sadness and despair of my soul, I get to tell you how I do in order to get past that. You see, in my free time, I have discovered a favorite pastime activity, which is to upset British people on Discord. I love upsetting British people because they're very easily upset with things that other people find hilarious. Like, for example, if you tell a British person that the Queen might actually be involved into politics a lot more than she lets on, they get very upset. And it's kind of weird because a lot of Eastern Europeans that are more skeptical oriented when they look at the surface of politics and they don't just believe everything that's being told to them, they do have the press X to doubt ability with the fact that the Queen is a lot more invested into politics. And British people who are more traditionalists and their entire system relies on the fact that she is above politics and she doesn't get involved, they get very upset when you point it out. And they get even more upset when you explain why you think this is. What are the logical machinations behind your statement? And one of the main reasons that I always thought that this is the case is if you look at the United Kingdom, you'll notice that the previous election was won in a landslide by the Conservatives. They scored such an amazing victory that they could just pass whatever legislation they wanted. And as that happens, you hear the Labour leader at the time, Jeremy Corbyn, make a very interesting statement saying, "We lost the election, but we won the argument." And that was kind of bizarre. It sounded a little bit like Cope. It sounded a little bit hilarious. It's like, how can you win the argument if you lost the election? What are you talking about? And it turns out that he was right. I mean, the Conservatives in the UK right now are completely identical to the Labour Party. On any issue, pretty much. I mean, if you're a person in the UK that, let's say, disagrees with the Build Back Better initiative, well, tough luck, because Labour supports it, and the Conservatives support it, and even smaller parties like the Lib Dems and other more smaller parties that are also available, they all support it. If you're a person in the UK that doesn't support lockdown measures, well, tough luck. Labour supports it, the Conservatives support it. You look at the Conservative, they're having their own version of CRT. They focus more on, I guess, LGBT issues rather than race issues, but they're pushing that in schools, and they're really enamored with identity politics. So I genuinely do not know what is the difference between the Conservatives and the left-leaning party of Labour in the United Kingdom. And apparently many British people don't. But the question is, like, what does that have to do with the Queen, right? Well, what it has to do is that a man like Boris seemed to have changed his stance 180 from what he was in the election. It's very similar with the previous prime minister. She also managed to change her stance. It was very different during the election period, and then she was very different after she managed to take hold. Now, I keep noticing this pattern where you have people that go on the campaign trail and they propose certain things, and then regardless of the political ideology or affiliation, once they actually get into power, they quickly do a 180 on everything and just maintain the course of the previous administration. There seems to be a continuity regardless of whomever manages to reach the position of prime minister, and regardless of what the people are voting for. I, as a low-brained Eastern European, am looking at this and I'm noticing, okay, but don't the prime minister have to meet with the Queen once every week? And the answer is yes, like the prime minister and the Queen meet each other and they talk about political affairs behind closed doors. Now, normally this wouldn't be that significant, except for the fact that it's always done behind closed doors. And no one talks about these meetings as far as I know. They're not recorded, nor do the prime ministers ever talk about what's being discussed there. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting that the Queen is blackmailing the Prime Minister or maybe that she's in charge of an entire apparatus of bureaucrats. I don't know what's going on. Maybe she's just very persuasive in implementing her points of view. But what it does seem is that no matter who comes into power, no matter the Prime Minister, they follow the same agenda. It's very similar. When it comes to ideology, when it comes to policy, they deviate very little, but they're pretty much spot on. Now, again, British people, they get really upset when I tell them that. And I suppose, I may be wrong. Like, I mean, I can't say this for sure, right? This is not even an accusation. It's just a speculation. You're allowed to have an opinion last time I checked. But recently, the Queen was caught on a hot mic. So she is peddling the exact same political nonsense that Greta Thunberg was peddling at her last conference, which is the fact that world leaders, they talk a lot about fixing climate change, but they don't do anything about it. Which is kind of funny because last time I checked, the gas prices are rising, the electrical bill is rising, you have carbon credits, you have gas tax, you have all sorts of regulations. Especially if you look at the UK, they say, oh, well, there's no truckers because of Brexit. Well, it seems that Brexit might have hit the United States as well. And what do these nations have in common? Oh, yes, that's right. The lockdown measures and the climate crisis measures. Now, when it comes to the climate crisis, I actually have a lot of subscribers, as you guys know, and I ask them, it's like, why is there a shortage when it comes to truckers? I mean, the UK is a country that has more than 60 million people. You can't look into my face and tell me that out of 60 million people, you can't find a couple of truckers that they can actually do the job. And from what they could tell me is like, number one, because of the lockdown measures, it was next to impossible to renew your driving license and your accreditation for driving a truck, which is bloated in government regulation. The other one is that you can't just use whatever truck you want. It needs to be a truck that's compatible with the standards of pollution that the UK allows. And there's many other issues, but like pretty much these are the two major ones. And it seems to be the same in the United States, with a lot of truckers are able to go to California now and do business unless they have a very recent state-of-the-art truck that's very expensive in order to fit the criteria of admitted pollution standards, right? So the idea that the people in charge aren't doing anything in order to protect the earth from the climate, I don't think that's true. I mean, I think it's just what Greta Thunberg liked to say, and it's a PR talking point, and now you're going to hear it more often. In my opinion, they're doing too much. Again, you look at Boris Johnson, he actually has the most ambitious green plan in the world. That's how he describes it, right? Now, if I was a British person, I would have liked for the most sustainable rather than the most ambitious. But that's just me, like I'm thinking, okay, winter is coming. How are people going to put food on the table and how are they going to warm their houses? But no, like apparently ambitious is the word. So you got that. And it's also interesting. What I love about these people that talk about the climate, like for example, if you look at Meghan and Harry, I mean, recently they were being exposed of buying a lot of stock in oil companies as well as pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies with bad reputation. And you're like, okay, so this is what it means to care about the planet. You just need to talk that you care, and you just need to talk that more needs to be done. Well, you do the exact opposite as a person. It's so weird because if you look at the world, right, you're going to see vegans that just stay away from meat. Like they don't eat meat, even if it doesn't change the world, they take a veggie burger, as disgusting as that is, and They just renounce eating meat. Or you see a Mormon who believes that the church is good and he donates a percentage of his earnings to the church every month. I mean, basically people who act the way they preach. Like someone that doesn't like animal fur, and you'll never see them wear animal fur. But when it comes with the climate change and when it comes with socialists, they literally do not live the lifestyle that they want other people to live. And it's very interesting that they're not being called out. So yeah, regarding the queen being apolitical, I don't buy it. I think she's very political. I think the entourage around her are sharing her politics. And I think that the next in line to the throne is going to be a little bit more outspoken because he wants to, quote unquote, modernize the monarchy. And by modernize the monarchy, I mean make it more traditional, where the monarch has a little bit more to say, I suppose. And I don't know if he's going to do it necessarily like have press statements or whatnot. But I think like you're going to get his opinions a lot more. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Like, you can call me out when it happens, but I generally don't think I'm wrong. I think that I'm going to be right on this one. And the hot mic thing, to me, that also looks like a PR stunt. I mean, the mic just happens to be on, and she literally says the exact same things that you can get the context out of. Very sus to me, but I don't know if you're allowed to be sus. Being sus is peddling conspiracy theories. Like, just not believing the argument. See, if a friend comes up to you and they say something and you're like, I don't believe you. Okay, what you're saying is far-fetched, that's fine. But if the media comes in front of you and tells you something and you're like, I don't believe what you're saying, that's far-fetched, that's conspiracy theory, motherfucker. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching and putting up with my monotonous voice, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.